Today we continue class 2. We are asked to remind everyone that we are now moving. This is part 2 of our classes in Genesis, and we moved from Noah now to Abraham, 10 generations. There were 10 generations between Adam and Noah. We dealt with in our first part, now from Noah to Abraham and circumcision, and theft, the part 2. So today, last time we described the society after the flood. We mentioned Noah, the misfortune, and he was falling naked on the ground, and his 2 sons cover his nakedness, which is a source of prayer shawl, talit, that I think it would be very appropriate for Noah to wear in prayer, covering the prayer shawl should cover the head, the body from head to the heel. It can carry 7. If you want 7 colors, it would be beautiful. It wouldn't have fringes, because fringes are specific for the 613 commandment of Sinai, whereas Noahide are more concerned about the 7th commandment. So it should be something that reminds us the 7th commandment, which could be like the 7 colors, let's say. So, and then we describe also how the first generation spread over the earth and spoke one language, and it was an ideal situation. So let's move now in our class today to continue, and we describe the Tower of Babel. So as an introduction, I would say the following. Let us note that our world today is increasingly more controlled by large corporations whose budget and power surpasses most countries' budget combined. Nationality also today is losing ground. And we found ourselves living in one large village, driven by economy and consumerism that embraces different producers from all over the world as to produce one little gadget. Many of those giant international corporations operate in obscurity. Their leadership is warped by thick layer of hierarchy hidden from the public eye and scrutiny. For instance, many Americans would be surprised to learn or to know that the modest-looking UPS company controlled fleets of airplanes, ships, and other modes of transportations, as well as giant electronic plants and insurance companies and other manufacturing giant plants whose budget is beyond imagination. This is just the UPS. Most of those giant international corporations are run efficiently by elaborate AI technology and supercomputers. In fact, the decision-making has been removed from our human CEO and given into the hand of those super machines who are smarter and capable of gathering and processing information better than any human being. They possess data, the large quantity of data, better than us. The new game in the market today is information and data. So much the experts talk today about a new religion, the Dataism, a new God. Whoever controls the data, they say, is control the universe. And since the amount of information gathered today is beyond the capability of our mind, is so large, only those machines can make a meaningful decision for us. Mankind would not be able to live from now on in force without those information machines capable of processing the data and making decisions for us. Dataism also means that this machine know better and everything about us, about ourselves, better than we know about ourselves. The machine would know what who should we date. It will make our health decision for us, what surgery we should undergo. It will decide whom should we vote for office, and what should we eat, and how should we live. Our species, the experts say, the old Homo sapiens is about to be replaced, they say, by a new hybrid of man and machines, that extend our mind with artificial limbs, and with chips that can process information more efficiently and more successfully and more delicately than individual hand. I myself witnessed an eye surgery done so delicately by a robot that I was amazed. It was done in Memphis. That process of taking over, but the expert says, is inevitable and would arrive whether we like it or not. And worse than all, the experts say, the old-fashioned religion and morality, like that of the Bible, would soon lose its meaning in the new world of the new computer and would disappear. There will be no meaning more than sin and repentance. All we need is to listen to what the machines tell us. Hence, they say, let us embrace ourselves to the new world of Dataism, where the art of gathering and processing information and communication are supreme, where our individualism would have no more meaning or loses meaning. Well, despite of what those experts say, it seems that Moses does have a message to us, particularly aimed at those threats, at this threat. Moses indeed could confirm that information and communication are good and supreme, but we need to prepare for ourselves and to listen to what the Torah says about it and how to overcome a threat and don't lose our morality. That message of Moses regarding this seemingly inevitable future is given to us by the story of Nimrod and Babylonian power. So let us read together the story of Babylonian Tower and see the main point of it. So the story of Babylonian Tower, or Tower of Babylon, begins with this new society formed after the flood, as we learned last week. The new generation, new society was comprised of 70 nations of Noahide descendant, spreading all over the world, speaking one language, having one faith, and reaching a common goal. And the goal was to produce, to own things, to trade things, to prosper in peace. In short, the dream of the United Nations has already came true. Among those new nations, one is particularly distinguished by the Torah, as it says, and I read for you. And the son of the children of Ham, were Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. And Cush begot Nimrod. So Ham, Noah's firstborn son, his descendants were the first to rule earth after the flood. Their list include Cush, Egypt, and Put, all the father of mighty nations and great civilizations that cover a large portion of Central Asia, Middle East, and Northern and Central Africa. Ham's firstborn Cush was the first leader of Noahide 70 nations, 70 family of nations. He is described as a righteous person, wise and respected by all. His name is still preserved in the mountain of Cush, around the Caspian Sea. The Torah then marks that he was the proud father of King Nimrod. It was indeed a great merit. So who was Nimrod? The Torah switched right away to describe King Nimrod. And it's, as it says, that Cush began Nimrod. And he began to be a mighty one on earth, in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Hashem. How can be a person mighty hunter before Hashem? Therefore, they say, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Hashem, repeat itself. And the beginning of Nimrod's kingdom was Babel, Erech, and Akkad, and Gilad, the land of Shinar, in Mesopotamia. Now, when you read it, you need to have good ears to listen to what the verse is really saying. It's describing the ascent of Nimrod to his power, how he ascended to be a benevolent king, then turned into a tyrant without lifting a sword. So the Torah first introduces Nimrod as a mighty man. This can mean simply that he was physically strong, beautiful young man, probably brown in skin. But as the rabbis mentioned, who is mighty? It says a mighty man. Who is mighty? Whoever controls himself. So hence Nimrod was spiritually strong. He controlled himself before he controlled other people or humanity. So his desire said, let us rebel. Nimrod means let us rebel. But he controlled them. From whom did he learn that skill? From Noah. As the rabbi said, if you remember the revelations, Noah, a revelation in Mount Moriah, after the flood, when he was frustrated offering his first burnt offering, he saw Hashem, and Hashem talked to his heart. Hashem was showing Noah was wondering about human heart, and Hashem says, talk to your heart. your heart is in your hand. So he learned from Noah. He learned many things from Noah, this young man. And the first thing he learned is to talk to his heart. So while his peers, the royalty of the king, palace, if you want, indulge himself in sex, wine, and who knows what, drugs, he controlled himself. He talked to his heart. He stayed away from trouble. The verse now adds that he was a hunter before Hashem. How can be a person a hunter before Hashem? Hashem hate people who hunt and kill animals for sport. So there are many legends which you don't have to go now into it. How you learn to cater to that animal, he gained their respect, their love. He was seen riding on the eagle wings, from where he could see the earth from above. The thing that prompted him later to build a tower to reach the sky. He was seen riding on lions, and he was fighting human hunters. So Nimrod, let us rebel, as if it says, let us rebel against those people. He used to tell the animal, let us rebel against the hunters. That's another explanation. So we climb up in the meaning of Nimrod. And another thing now, the third level maybe of hunting, he hunted people. He learned to hunt people and to gain their trust by listening to their wishes and understanding what they want, what they say to him, even without words, just winks. How did that happen? So in short, the story goes like this: that when Nimrod was still a young prince, his father Cush was hunted night after night by fearful dream about Nimrod. In his dream, he saw Nimrod ascending on his throne after he is gone, Cush, and people coming to speak to Nimrod, presenting their petitions, but to Nimrod's surprise, what they say seemed to be like barking animals. He couldn't understand what they say. And in his dream, Cush kept dreaming that when Nimrod, the king, the new king, tried to address these people, they perceived his words as barking. So there was no communication. And after a while, the people were fed up, toppled Nimrod, and actually killed him in his dream. So Cush woke up night after night sweating, fearing, and finally consulted his father Noah, or grandfather Noah, who understood that he said, from heaven they tell you now, the fact that you dream it after night is a sign that heaven warned you, take care of this young fellow, young prince. He's going to be a great king, but preparing for that, he is not prepared. What should I do? Cush asked. So Noah said, send him right now to the 70 nations, and so he can spend time with each one and learn each nation's desire and inspiration. So finally, when he comes to power, he will understand it. He was not barking at him. So Cush smiled and understood what Noah's saying. And from there on, he sent his young fellow, a young boy, Nimrod, to rotate between the 70 nations. And young Nimrod, Cush warned him, he said, you may spend time with each of the nation, and each one of them I know will try to cater you, to teach you everything, because they know me. And they know that one day you will be a king. And each one of them will try to draw you into his camp. That they will tell you, let us rebel again together against your father. But you remember me and never fall a prey to their wishes. And that's why his name is Nimrod. Let us rebel. And indeed, for the next few years, Noah rotated in the 70 nations, learning each nation this deepest desire. And since each ruler knew that one day Nimrod would be the king, so they opened their heart and tried to gain his confidence, to teach him everything. So after a while, Nimrod returned to the palace, and he remained loyal to his father. And his father took out his crown, put his Nimrod head, and Nimrod became the new king. But now he was ready to become a king. So successful he was as a king. He could listen, understand the whims and the wishes of each one of the nations that came to him. So much against their trust that each one believed that he is one of them. Put their entire trust in him. And that's how peace prevailed, and Nimrod's name grew. And at the beginning, as the verse says, at the beginning, he ruled over Mesopotamia, but in time, his rule spread all over the continents, from Asia down to Africa. So this was how King Nimrod ascended to his power as a democratic, benevolent king who know how to consult, is a subject to listen to their desire. In Hebrew, melech. A melech is a king who know how to consult his people and to address their need. So how come that this Nimrod became now the greatest tyrant of earth? How could it be? So the story is that King Nimrod could have remained benevolent, democratic king ruler forever, and not a new technology came and changed everything, as in our days. New technology come and change everything. Today, with the internet and smartphone, we are not the same as 18th century or 19th century people. Certainly not. So here's the technology, change everything. What was the technology? The verse tells us exactly what it was. And I read it for you. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn a fire. And the brick will serve them as a stone, and the mortar will serve them as clay." The new technology prompted new building project. At the beginning, it was small, as archaeology says. They built new homes, new city walls, then new towers. And archaeology really confirmed the massive building of new brick building, especially around 3000 BC in Mesopotamia, and then at the same time, a massive building about in Egypt too. The first pyramid, 2500 BC. These massive projects were done, we should note, not by slaves, but rather by free young farmers who left their farms to join the new building project in the city. Those young volunteers spend several months a year on a project, enjoying good food, good company, and entertainment, things that they never had on their own farm. That's archaeology confirmed now. That's how the pyramids were built and the Babylonian towers were built. Moreover, these young fellows were thrilled to participate in a project that is bigger than their own farm, family farm. At the project now, they could meet other young people from all over the country. Interesting new friends from all over the world, actually, and exchange ideas with them, share the same experience. It was a beautiful experience for them. They look forward to come and participate in the project. On the project, they will develop the first time in their life the sense of belonging to a large organization that is more powerful than their own farm. Like today, somebody will join a company like Apple or anything that is larger than you can even imagine. It's thrill of belonging to such a company. Scholars say that those huge buildings projects serve as a consolidate the notion of a nation, the notion of a country, and even the notion of social structure. The workers loved to join the project and were proud to take part in it. King Nimrod is the master of listening to what the people have in their heart, took a note. As now the verse continues to say. And they, the builders, said to one another, come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top shall reach the sky. And let us make a name for ourselves, lest we scatter all over the face of the whole world. The verse describes the workers' world inspired by the project. They discovered that on the project, they could make a name for themselves, becoming officers, having a rank, climbing up on the ladder of society. On the project, like in the military, they could climb up on rank, fame, title, uniform, honor, something they could never had back on his farm, on the farm. King Nimrod saw and took notice of it. He took advantage of that thrill. And slowly and gradually, he offered them greater and bigger, larger projects that assembled more and more people around it. Finally, he came up to the idea of the major Babylonian tower. And he says, let us make a name for ourselves. Now, like in any larger organization, even today, the building project of that time required specialization, things they didn't have on a farm. One worker excelled in making bricks. The other excelled in climbing on a scaffold. The other excelled in cooking, and the other and in other endeavor, and so on. So they became specialists, and becoming a specialist made one proud. And it added the title to one name, increased the social status. Here came the thrill of hierarchy. The tower introduced a new social hierarchy. So there were simple workers, there were managers, supervisor, and supervisor of the supervisors. King Nimrod himself was pushed up and up almost automatically on this hierarchy without lifting a sword. he became supreme. He sat in the pinnacle of this pyramid or the tower. Some worker arose with him in the hierarchy, with others remained at the bottom. But yet, to their credit, they share the common sense of brotherhood, and they loved each other, and they united in one goal, to pursue one goal, to reach the sky. Let us make a name for ourselves. King Nimrod allowed the workers to make a name for themselves, which means to engrave the name on a brick, on a corridor, on an entire building, on a whole wing. This wing belonged to this fellow, remember him forever. This established the builder fame forever, for generations. Now, how big was the tower? Let us build a tower whose head in the sky. We do not know the real size of the tower. Tradition said that it was planned as 27 by 27 square mile base. Imagine, 27 by 27 miles base. That's how the rabbi saw it. And it was designed to reach 27-mile height. King Nimrod assembled architect who designed it for him. He gathered all information in his drawer. Perhaps the dimensions are exaggeration, yet we're sure that the tower was indeed an enormous endeavor on a scale unknown to mankind before or after. It required thousands and thousands of workers and would have taken hundreds of years to accomplish. Successive waves of workers came and gone. Generation passed and the tower was still being built. A whole new culture developed around it. Songs were composed to its glory, and stories of heroism were told from father to son. Son, years ago I stood on the third floor and this happened to me. And to my friend, here are the name of my glorious friend. We can imagine the great impact of the tower had on the economy. The worker needed organized food, clothing, shelter, and services, even entertainment, as we see actually in archaeology pyramid, digging near the pyramid. The Tower of Babel, like the Egyptian pyramid, prompted entire industries around it, created wealth and power, especially to those who sat at the top, like King Nimrod himself. Gradually, even unintentionally, King Nimrod's fame and status became divine. His skill as communicator excelled as the tower grew taller and taller. He controlled our enormous knowledge of how the building is to be built. He controlled the data. He was the master of dataism. While the workers only complied with the regulations, holding by Nimrod holding that knowledge secure his status. To the worker at the bottom of the hierarchy, he seemed unreachable, concealed by an army of shareholders, of subordinates. His word became the law. No one challenged his authority because everyone was thrilled to enjoy the economic boom, being proud of belonging to such an important national endeavor. Everything went on and seemed well to Nimrod until finally the verse says that Hashem, suddenly the verse says, Hashem came down to see, Hashem Yud He Vav Kei, came down to see the city and the tower which the children of Adam were building. It was not Elohim, it was not the attribute of judgment, justice. Justice was prevailed. Everything was fine. The only one who took care of note of that was a merciful attribute, Yud Hey Vav Kei. So what prompted her to come down? And the rabbi says, and Hashem. And when he says, and Hashem, mean it was her and her court. Meaning she came down not as a visitor. She came down, the merciful one, came down to judge, to assess the building from her aspect, from her perspective. And it was bad. Why? What happened? Something really evil happened on the tower. Without breaking the law, with everybody was complying with the law and being a faithful builder, yet something bad happened. There was prosperity, but Hashem didn't like it. She came down to see what happened. How could, she wondered, how could that be? So the rabbi says what happened. Tradition said that the project advanced and the tower became taller. It became more and more heartless and merciless. The tower went up and accidents became more and more frequent and more disastrous. Some of many workers were injured or killed on a daily basis. The tower itself, they say, toppled at least 3 times, burying underneath who knows how many builders and injured how many people. Yet they started all over again. And amazingly, as more as accidents occur, the more a warlike mentality took place, a new vocabulary. Let us conquer the flaw. Let us we can conquer nature. We'll climb up despite the danger. A war mentality, a hierarchy. And that actually prompted, elevated Nimrod status even more to the sky. So heartless and so merciless the project became that when injury occurred, the rabbi said, and people, let's say, fell from the 10th floor to the ground with bricks in their hand, people around him lamented the brick rather than the injured person who nobody paid attention to. So the life of a people became dispensable for the sake of the project. And that, to sacrifice people for the bottom line, enraged Hashem. Nothing wrong was done when you talk about the law, but it was a merciless and heartless, so much that she came down. So here came the new meaning to his name. Nimrod, let us rebel. Rebel against whom? Rebel now against Hashem. We ignore it. We want the bottom line. We want the endeavor to be successful. We want to reach the sky. And as the tower became taller, his ego, Nimrod's ego also became bigger and bigger and taller. And gradually, he saw himself a divine force. He saw himself as deity. And to be such an arrogant person, the rabbi says, he and Hashem cannot be in the same world. if a person's ego is big, Hashem run away from him or from the universe. Hashem cannot be in the same room with arrogant people with big ego. And Nimrod developed such enormous ego that Hashem could not stay with Nimrod. She wanted to run away. But she did not run away. Instead, the verse says, and let's see how Hashem responded to it. The verse says that Hashem said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and now nothing will be withheld from them to do that which they have scheduled to do. What a verse. Here the Torah admits, or actually announce, admit if a better word, that if people walk that way, be merciless and ruthless, and following the rule of the jungle, and just wisdom and science, they can reach everything. Yes, everything they're scheduled to do, they will accomplish. Yoba acknowledge here that and send a message to us that every selfish, indifferent, and heartless human organization can achieve its financial and political goal, even reach the sky. Yeah, no wonder that such a corporation can be extremely successful and satisfy its shareholder. Yet, only one entity will be enraged. He's a merciful one. Will be enraged if he throw away mercilessly people to the trash, as a trash, paying no attention to people suffering from the wake of this growth, taking no care of people who are dismissed or lose their job for the sake of the shareholders, and so on. If we don't, yes, those companies can control and grow. But the Torah says, I'm not so sure if you believe in God, if you believe in God or not, but I'm telling you, God exists. And if you see that, you have never broken any law. Yes, if you stand in trial and you can show, well, I took care of all my people and I did what the law says, and I was particular to the finest point, but you were merciless. You ignore people suffering. That's not in the law. If you do that, I will be enraged. So how did she respond? What did she do to the people? How she could have, you could have said she would properly, she would shower brimstone on it, like in Sodom and Gomorrah. No, she didn't do this. Let's see what he said. And Hashem says, he said, come, let us go down and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another. She aimed beautifully. She aimed at the core of his power. He was master of communication. He was a master of understanding people's whims. He could read people's mind. He could gather information, process it, and send down information down the pipe to the worker. Your information, your dataism, that will enrage me. That will enrage her. She destroys this dataism, this communication. She corrupted the core of Nimrod's power, his skill to listen as a listener, as a communicator. The dream of his father came true. He spoke something and people perceive it as barking. illegible barking. They spoke to him, and he perceived that as barking. And they talked to each other, and each other didn't understand what the other people said. One person says, bring him the hammer, and he gave him water. He asked water, and they gave him a hammer. They didn't understand each other. So the result is that they dispersed, and from there dispersed all over the earth. The tower was abandoned, finally destroyed. King Nimrod found himself isolated, finally was dead. About many story about how he finished his life, but that's not for us now to read. So what happened now, the few minutes after discuss the world after Nimrod? Nimrod introduced to the world the organization and its power. After his demise, people tried to emulate him. Between 3000 and 2500 BC, that's the period you see empire, state, armies, and empire start to appear on earth the first time. Read Karen Armstrong books about the history of the world, history of God. That the first time, people tried to emulate him. He had Nimrod sat on the pinnacle of a pyramid, his subordinate underneath it, and everything was done for him. Why shouldn't I be a tyrant, sit on my tower, and force people to do the job for me? King Nimrod knew how to at least attract people. He listened to them, offered them good things to inspire them to the work. They came on their own. The people who replaced him tried to do it. They didn't have any talent to attract people to do the job on a field. So they learned to go invade other nations whose language they could understand. Now they go to another land, capture territories and slaves, force them to work in the field. And new entity came, the royal, Karen Armstrong described it, the new warrior lord or something like that. A whole layer of society of people whose skill was only to fight, to marshal army, who spent time to conquering, subduing, subjecting other people to pay taxes, and to walk by force in the field, empire. And from there until recently, even now, even in Ukraine, that's what we see today. So the idea that I can invade other countries and subject people to my rule, my desire, that started there. So when 10 generations later, when Abraham was born, this was the picture of the universe into which Abraham was born. Let's keep it in mind. Abraham was born into a world that was full of empires fighting each other, as you see it in the text, stealing each other countries, stealing each other wives, enslaving people to work. Everything around Abraham at that time revolved around theft. Not theft like in Noah's time on a street gang, robbing and mugging, but organized theft on a large scale that actually came to the world by the demise of Nimrod, Babylonian Tower. So here we are finishing our class today, and to summarize, yes, deityism is not new. Moses acknowledges the possibility that such a tower, corporation tower, can be built anytime and be very successful and even reach the sky and be indeed very successful. You can build a corporation that's so financially successful that can control multiple functions at the same time, budget larger than any country. Yet, if we forget the merciful Hashem, we forget our human fellow man, and forget and ignore sorrow, and don't care of those people who are thrown away in the wake of this success. If we forget them, if we are heartless, there is no future for this growth. We will see growth, but it will end up with Hashem coming down again, who knows, and do her job to stop our evil doing. Any question for me?